Mexican drug cartels are a big worry for everyone around the world. They cause tons of violence and corruption. Lots of folks think it's just a Mexican problem, but that's way too simple. The United States played a big part in how these criminal groups got started. People often don't pay attention to this. These powerful cartels didn't just show up by accident. It's all tied up with politics, money, and secret operations. Things the US government did created chances for drug traffickers, and they grabbed them. This show will dig into this hidden story. We'll look at how choices made by the US affected how the cartels grew. The idea is to help you understand it all a bit better. The story people usually tell is like good guys versus bad guys. But what really happened is way more complicated. Governments make choices, and those choices have real effects on the world. Sometimes, these effects end up making the very enemies they say they're fighting even stronger. Understanding this is really important to see the whole picture of the war on drugs. The Cold War was a time of big global competition, with the US and the Soviet Union fighting for power. Latin America was a really important battleground. The US looked for friends in the area, not always picking them for being fair or democratic. Sometimes these friends were tough rulers or people mixed up with criminals. Drug dealers were sometimes seen as helpful folks to have around. They could give information and money to groups fighting against communism. This made it easier for some of the first drug traffickers to get started. They got protection and power, setting up drug routes and making their crime groups stronger. Some of these groups later grew into powerful cartels. The CIA worked with people involved in opium and cocaine to help the Contra forces in Nicaragua. The main political goal at the time was more important, pushing worries about drug dealing to the side. This way of doing things, without meaning to, helped organized crime start to grow. US policy was a big reason why today's cartels got their start. The drug trade brings in huge piles of cash, and all that money needs to be cleaned. American banks played a super important part in this, becoming tools the cartels really needed. Big banks in the US moved billions of dollars from the drug business. Wachovia Bank and HSBC are good examples. They got fined for cleaning hundreds of billions of dollars for Mexican cartels. These weren't just a few one-off things. This problem was huge and part of how things worked. The chance to get these big money deposits was just too tempting for some folks. Plus, the rules were often weak or people didn't really follow them. All this cleaned money gave the cartels a ton of power because of all that cash. They could buy more drugs, get fancy weapons, pay off officials, and spread their control. The banks, even when they got fined, often just saw these fines as part of the cost of doing business. The profits they made from moving this illegal money were really big. This money help was like a lifeline for the cartels. It let them grow into giant crime groups that worked across different countries. How easy it was for them to clean their money in the US really helped them out. It showed a big weak spot in the fight against these big crime groups. The US government started these operations to fight gun smuggling, like the one called Fast and Furious. The plan was to let straw buyers get guns. Then, they'd track those guns to the big cartel bosses in Mexico. But the way they did it was a real mess, and ATF agents lost track of a lot of the guns. So, hundreds, maybe even thousands of guns walked into Mexico and ended up with the cartels. These guns were then used for really bad crimes, like murders, kidnappings, and shootouts. So the operation, by mistake, armed the very criminals they were trying to stop. And this led to some tragic, deadly stuff. A lot of these guns later showed up at crime scenes in Mexico. They were even linked to the death of a US Border Patrol agent, Brian Terry. This whole thing made people in both countries super angry. It showed there were big mistakes in how things were decided and watched over. It really hurt the trust between US and Mexican police. And it showed just how dangerous secret plans can be if they're not thought out right. The war on drugs officially started decades ago. It used up tons of resources and cost trillions of dollars. But illegal drugs are still super easy to find. So you gotta ask, is this war really meant to be won? Some experts say the war on drugs is a moneymaker. It creates and supports whole industries. The prison business in the US booms when lots of people are jailed, many for drug crimes. Police get huge budgets to fight drugs. Military contractors and security companies also make money. Gap 2S. If drug dealing was cut way down, all that money would stop flowing. The system now, even with its problems, gives many people jobs and makes good money for some businesses. This makes it really hard to change things, because it's stuck in its ways. The focus is often just on arrests and stopping drugs. Less attention goes to why people use drugs or other ways to help. The war itself became a business. That's why the main problems with drug trafficking don't go away. When the US deals with countries in Latin America, it often puts its own plans and money first. This can sometimes hurt those countries, making it hard for them to be steady or fair. When the US got involved, helped certain leaders, or used money to pressure them, it changed how things were run. This made it easy for bad groups, like cartels, to use the situation. Often, when other countries get involved, no one is really in charge. This lets new groups take over. Cartels get strong where governments are weak, and there's a lot of cheating. Sometimes, US actions accidentally helped create this unsteadiness. Trying hard to stop drugs often means using soldiers. This leads to more fighting as cartels protect their roots. Cartels adapt when pressured. They get smarter, use trickier ways, and become tougher. How Mexican cartels work can mirror US actions abroad. This shows that fixing things needs more than just police. It's a tangled web, how these cartels and regular businesses connect. It's more than just banks cleaning up dirty money. Other big companies can get involved too, sometimes openly, sometimes in quieter ways. Often, how they're connected isn't obvious. It's not always a clear-cut deal they make together. Sometimes companies profit from trouble the cartels cause, or they sell things that cartels end up using. Think about it like this. With big farms or those mining companies, land can open up, become available because cartel fighting forces people off their land. Then, these big companies might come in and buy that land. Or they start doing business in places where the cartels pretty much run the show. Selling spy tech is another way. Governments buy it for security, but cartels get it too. Cartels try to make their bad money look good, so they invest it in regular businesses, like real estate or farming. This makes it hard to tell criminal work from real business, and it weaves cartels deeper into the whole economy. US foreign policy and business goals can accidentally create openings for cartels, and cartels are quick to use these for their own benefit. So, asking if cartels still do things that help the US might sound a little wild. Officially, the US government is fighting the cartels hard and spending billions of dollars to do it. But some folks think things are more complicated. They talk about an idea called managed chaos. When things are unstable in some places, it can give the US a reason to get involved, like sending soldiers or offering security help. This helps companies that make weapons, and it can also keep other powerful countries or different ideas from getting too strong. The fear cartels create can make people want more security technology and help from the US. The drug trade itself isn't just about crime, it's also about money. This drug money, sometimes called narco dollars, can really affect a country's economy. Focusing so much on fighting cartels can also take attention away from other big problems. It gives everyone an easy enemy to blame. It's not like folks at the top are giving direct orders. It's more about looking at what happens and how some US interests might gain from the situation. The connection between the United States and Mexican cartels is, well, it's not simple at all. It's full of big things that just don't add up. On the surface, everyone says these bad groups are terrible, and that there's a war declared against them. But when you look under all that, the story has a lot more shades to it. Things the US did during the Cold War gave them their first chances, and American banks getting involved in washing drug money gave them the cash to grow. Operations that failed, like Fast and Furious, ended up arming them. And the money tied to the ongoing war on drugs makes you wonder if there's a real wish to truly end it. These aren't just single events. They're all part of a bigger, complicated pattern of influence, and what happens because of it. The story everyone hears often covers up these truths that make folks uneasy, making things fuzzy on purpose. Certain US interests, whether about money or world power, might actually gain from how things are now. Understanding this history of influence is super important. It helps us see Mexican cartels not just as scary, separate groups, but as signs of a bigger, connected system. Seeing this history that both sides share, that's the first step to figuring out better ways to make things right.